Yo, yo, yo. Buen son. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. How y'all doing from all over? Hope the Nazion is good. Hope the nation's good. Okay, so I basically want to talk real quick and catch up on going back to a little bit of what I was saying in my last podcast in regards to language barriers. Now, right now, I want to say, dear white people, dear black people, dear everybody in between and listening. I was listening to an interview with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan on the Donahue show back in the early 90s. And it's so crazy because I was just talking about the language barrier between all of us as cultures. And as I watched how everybody was interacting with one another, blacks, how they agreed with things Farrakhan said, sometimes the white people didn't agree with it, some felt it, some didn't, and seeing the reactions, feeling the emotions, the energy of the overall place, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is the time we're in right now as well. That happened back in the early 90s. We're in the 20s now. Hey, it's crazy. So it had me thinking, once again, going back to what I was saying, how there's a barrier. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, should we still have a Black History Month? White people, do you think it's fair that we have a White History Month? Black people, do you believe we should keep a Black History Month? Anybody in between, everybody. It doesn't matter. I have that question first. Now, the reason I ask this is because this is what I'm talking about, lack of understanding culture. Now, nobody take anything offensively. Remember, I'm just showing you from different sides. We got to play this like chess, look at different angles of the chessboard. Now, let's go to the white people real quick, okay? Now, they're not necessarily understanding us as African Americans, as Black people, because just as well as they went to the schools we went to, even though some had better education, some Black people went to certain schools they went to. Some may not have the best education comparison, or some have an even better one. Depends on how you've learned. You realize that just as well as we were taught a certain way, white people were taught a certain way too. So you guys are seeing the African American culture from a whole different lens than what is really going on within the culture, because you don't necessarily live the life we're living, because you see us portrayed a certain way on television and in media. You think that that's really what our culture is about. But in reality is you don't really have an understanding of our culture. You think the way that we talk is like, uneducated. But in reality, that's our form of language. And that's what I expressed. I noticed the offense in this whole interview. And it kind of made me laugh because, there's a lot of stuff in there I was kind of like, I feel people need to hear. Black folks, same thing. Can you guys feel how us as Black people feel, right? We go to school. How many months? It depends where you go actually these days. Some of y'all in summer school might as well stay the whole dang year. But for most of the part, you're going out for 8 months in school, most of the part here in some of the states, different areas. Now, out of all that year, that whole period, us as African Americans, Black people, Caribbean Americans, African Americans, anybody with some melanin have learned about the European culture. I say Eurocentric at times too. I use them interchangeably, but they're more Europeans culture. We learn about your history, your rules, your laws, your civilizations, your presidents. But we take 1 month out of the year, Black History Month, to learn about ourselves, which to me, quite frankly, isn't enough time. And you guys still find a way to get offended, say, oh, well, we can't have a White History Month. We'd be considered racist. No. I could quite frankly care if you had a White History Month. But according to me, it's White History Month 7 months out the year in school. So this is what I'm saying with the lack of understanding. White people, we're brothers and sisters on all ends. We're all praline deep down inside. You feel me? It's all love. We all come from the same motherland and everything. We're all connected as one. So this is what I need y'all to see from a different lenses too. Have any of y'all actually decided to go walk in a ghetto? When you guys go out to travel, do you guys ever actually go walk the roads that a lot of these immigrants walk on? Or are you catching a taxi or getting your rental to go to this tourist resort, and then you turn around screaming like, oh my God, Dominican Republic is the best place ever. Oh my God, Cancun, Mexico is the best place ever. Oh my God, Jamaica is the best place ever. Okay, cool, we get it. You go vacation on these spots, you go on these nice resorts, you have the time of your life, but have you really learned about that culture? Because most likely when you go out and about, you're going to these local spots that are more geared for the tourists, meaning you're not really getting the culture. See, this is where I told people I travel different. Me and my best friend, we travel differently. And the thing is, we want to have the actual experience of what people are actually going through, how their life is. So if people are used to catching transportation on a bus, walking miles, me and my best friend are doing it. Why? Because the realness of what people really go through sinks in more. You get to actually see how people live, how they have to go to work every day, the trials and tribulations they have with public transit, with their city. You get to see how they're treated on a whole different level. But because, once again, everything is geared towards more of your culture, you don't get to see how people are really living behind the scenes. And not even just overseas, but even here in your own country. I could take you to certain places in Florida and you'd be like, whoa, what is this? Take you to certain neighborhoods, you'd be shocked how the people operate. But because media has us all thinking the Black culture is a monolithic culture, we don't care to get to know them by actually going into the areas and seeing how it is, because we automatically think, hey, media says this is them. If they dress like this is how they act, and you go with it. And because you've never actually learned our history, maybe with the exception of the few for Black History Month, let's keep it real. Black History Month, you have most likely Martin Luther King. We all hear about Martin Luther King. You get a little bit of Harriet Tubman, okay? Now, in my school, they didn't really teach much like that, you feel me? That's why I said everybody comes from different backgrounds, different types of learning. Did they teach you about Marcus Garvey, though? Did they teach you about Nelson Mandela? Did they teach you about Huey Newton? I bet they gave you bits of pieces of George Washington Carver, maybe a little bit of Booker T. But have you really dug deep into our history to have an understanding of what we've really been through? And see, that's what I'm saying. We don't realize on both sides that we're not learning Black history at all. It's not just white people. Black people don't even know history of themselves. Some of those names, people be like, huh? When we don't, and the thing is, we also got to stop condemning people for not knowing, because here's the reality: nobody's taught. And even though you may think you know a lot about it, you'd be surprised how other people's knowledge gets deeper with it. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know everybody, but I took some time out to actually get to learn my history, and I was taught that from a young age. You know, my people were big on that. Learn this about yourselves. Because why? It shows me the potential of what I can be instead of the typical stereotype of what we see in media, what we see on TV. I just don't think we're understanding another and seeing how uneducated we are. And the only education we really have about each other's culture is through media, through TV and movies and shows that we see. You feel me? Now, when that show on Netflix, Luke Cage, yes, you guys know Luke Cage, the black superhero, came out. Every black person, well, maybe not everybody, but I was excited. I was excited to see something like that. Why is that? Because we see Superman all the time, white, saving the world. But then what are we doing? We're not saving the world. We're dealing drugs. We got baby mama drama, Daddies ain't home. Our brothers are locked up in prison. Dang. We dress a certain way. We talk a certain way. So it's looked down upon because you guys don't have a real understanding of the conditioning behind that. A lot of us come from different backgrounds. A lot of us didn't have the head start that the other culture has, and it starts with the education. See, if black people had those superheroes they could look up to, if they had those cartoons that featured more of them where they could look up to, can you imagine the psychological effect it would have on them now? Just think about it from both ends. If white people seen black people as superheroes as well, if white people see more black people in more roles that they're in, they would look at us differently just as well. Black people will look at themselves differently just as well. And y'all, I seen one of the most beautiful quotes after listening to Marcus Garvey's speech today. Like, sometimes I be doing my little thing, working, getting some work in, and I listen to podcasts a lot, different speeches, different things, just because that's me. And Marcus Garvey said one of the most beautiful quotes in his speech. If black people knew their glorious history, they would be inclined to respect themselves. I wrote it down earlier and then I lost the sticky and then I was like, yo, it came back to my head and then I went back just to verify. I'm like, yes, this hits on so many horizons. A lot of us as African Americans, we're not taught the same history at all. And this is where I want both ends of the culture to listen. White people, you don't have an understanding of our history. Black people, you don't have an understanding of our history. You feel me? So we don't understand one another. We're all getting fed a different story. See, you know how depressing it was to be a black American girl, to have to go to school, learn all year about you guys. Like, man, what am I going to learn about me? Why is my hair not considered good? Why was I treated this way? Why am I still being treated this way? Okay, let's look at the education factor. We get 1 month. Not even, and it's the shortest month out the year that you guys choose. Nobody's paying attention because everybody's in love mode. Lovey-dovey. That's the lover's month. Nobody's paying attention to that at the time. You're taking a little bit, like I said, mainly Martin Luther King. If it wasn't for my dad getting me into that stuff at a young age, I really didn't hear much about Malcolm X until I hit 10th grade. And I'll never forget the teacher's name. A lot of people at times would say he's rude, but hey, he's from New Jersey. They just talk blunt from what I know. And that's a culture I'm used to, somebody that's just blunt. And I remember he would say certain things, like he told people India is really good in technology and all the kids laughed and they just said this guy was rude. But anyway, there was only maybe 5 of us token folks up in the classroom. And he said something about a certain individual. I think it was Ronnie King. And then he said something to one of the brothers, jokingly, and the brother didn't get it. And he's like, you don't know who Ronnie King is? The teacher was shocked. Look, you don't know who Rodney King is? Wait. How many of you know who Rodney King is? A few white people rose their hands. I think I rose my hand. And the rest of the black folks didn't really raise their hand. And he turns to us, and this is a white teacher, and says, you guys are black, and you don't know who Rodney King is. Do you know who Malcolm X is? And then I was like, yeah, I know Brother X, you know? Yeah. Everybody else is kind of like, nah, I don't know who he is. And the teacher literally is like, wow, we're going to do the Rodney King case. Because he was a law teacher. So he's like, we're doing Rodney King. And he's like, I am shocked that you guys are African American and you don't know your history. And you could feel the tension in the class, how even some of the white kids are like, oh, why are you talking to them like that? But in reality, I was like, he's right. Why don't us know about this type of history? Why aren't we really taught this? And then when we read the story of Rodney King and, we had to do the little projects like we're really in court and stuff, it really made us look at things like, wow, this Reverend God, man, tore up by the police. Police brutality's been going on a lot longer than what we really thought, huh? But even some of us as African Americans, we don't know that history. This is where a lot of disconnect lies. We're not learning history to represent us. And I want white people to understand, like, you guys have history that you look at that's taught to you a certain way to make you proud, to make you want to prosper, to make you look up to something like, yeah, that's gonna be me. Us as black people, we don't get that same type of representation within media. See, perfect example. When the Luke Cage movie came out and people were watching the trailers and they were giving their commentary about like the first episode, I remember specifically one white lady, she's like, I'm not gonna watch this because there's not even really any white people in it. This is racist. And I was like, yo, what about all the shows you guys have with the one black token kid? Come on, are you serious? We were lucky we got Susie and Rugrats, brah. Yo, Susie was everything to us. Like, yo, Susie's the cool black kid. Yeah, yeah, she's the doer of good. You feel me? So it's like, yo, I mean, what? How can you say that? Look how many superhero movies you guys had with barely any of us in it at one point. But over the years, things have been changing. There's more diversity in media now. People are able to do more of what they want to do freely. Thank God to the internet. Thank you. You feel me? Um, so, we're learning more. We're being exposed more to even our own culture, which is why you're seeing a lot of black people talking more. And it's nothing against you saying you guys are wrong for anything. It's just the same thing. You don't have an understanding of our culture because of what you see on media. Anybody who knows me, they know I'm just me. I live in the moment. I can't tell you how I'm going to be now in comparison to how I'm going to be within the next hour. I live within the moment. If you catch me in a bad day, I might cuss you out. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Tomorrow I'm going to feel horrible about it. I'm going to pray and say, God, I really didn't mean to do that, but I'm human. You feel me? So on some realness, I don't discriminate. I don't judge. The same way I'm going to talk to a black person is the same way I'm going to talk to a white person. I love you all fairly. There's people on all ends that, they just, yeah. Anyway, so the point is, I've had some white people, and I'm going to tell you different sides of how this shows where we are deceived by media a lot on both ends. So a few white people, I've actually heard this a few times from these white folks that I've worked with, were friends with at one point, tell me, oh, you're not that type of black, you're not like, no, I don't know. What does that mean? I'm black. Well, you know what I mean. You're not like those, like, you know what I'm saying. It's just for me to entertain, like, no, I don't know what you're saying, but I do get what they're saying. They'll always tell me because I don't act like black people because they're used to an image on TV quite a bit. And when they meet somebody like me, I originally come off as weird to them because they're not used to seeing my type of black on TV. And then when they get to know me, they be like, yo, man, she cool. She very straightforward and blunt, but she cool. And they know that's just me. But because the way I talk to them, I show everybody respect. I mean, as long as you respect me, I respect you. And that, they'll tell me straight up, like, yo, I've heard that phrase a couple times. You're not like these black people. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then it made me really look at the culture like, yo, you guys really believe what you see on TV. And then the crazy thing is, because they're so used to it on TV, and they interact with us in real life, we could just say, yo, what's up, homie? And they automatically got a bad image, because in most of these shows, when you got somebody like that, some bad shit's about to go down. You feel me? Something like, yo, bring the boys out. Oh, they don't know what's going on. So realize that the white culture has a certain perception of how we react, when in reality it's not like that on all ends. I mean, of course there's some to a certain degree. Like, I didn't believe a lot of stuff I seen on TV, and then I went to different parts of Florida, and anybody who knows Florida knows every region of Florida has its own culture. So I'm not going to give away the region, but when I went there, I really realized, yo, people really talk like yo, like, what's the word they say? I don't want to say country grammar. Is it really like, how you hear how Medea talks, like Mr. Brown and his yeah. I actually had a neighbor, and man, when her and her husband argue, that came out, and I was like, yo, they really talk like that. But because, like I said, I wasn't exposed to that culture. You feel me? I thought that was just on TV too. So, but I've never really been exposed to that culture to that degree, seeing like, oh man, this is really like some legit stuff. Some of it's legit, and then some of it's like, oh, that's straight bull. So same with black people. You guys just as well. You guys think we're a monolithic culture due to media. A lot of the influence going to our hip hop culture. You feel me? A lot of times I've just said it. I said we don't really have the hip hop culture, we influence it. But something that's hurting us more than helping us, why would we want to claim that as ours? I feel, unfortunately, hip hop, and not to all degrees, because there's definitely a lot of artists trying to keep the art alive, but a lot of people in hip hop, they get so caught up in the materialism of it, the vanity, how they look on TV, that they don't realize how they're influencing their own people. And people internationally, it's not just in America, internationally look at that culture like, yeah, that's what I want to be. So everybody's dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, and we don't realize how it actually turns us into targets for this type of stereotype that the other side of media sees. You feel me? So we're just looking at it like that's our culture, but reality is they're looking at it like our culture is no good, because they're not educated with our history. We're not educated with our history to certain degrees. And it's kind of a real beautiful thing to see, right? Because you see how the world's evolving through all ends. Like I said, we're one people, all of us at the end of the day. Black, white, Latino, everything in between, we're all one people. And once we get to realize that, hey, there are differences in our culture, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we're not going to get past anything until we have these type of conversations. White people understand our culture, right? We don't have an attitude. We're not being defensive. That's just how a lot of us came up. It sounds like we're talking more harshly, but come on, we came up in the hood, some of us. And then a lot of us, we speak more passionately. Like, okay, Caribbean culture, they'll understand me on this. Y'all ever have your parents get up on the phone? And when they get on the phone, it's like they're talking to an audience, or they feel you're deaf on the other end. Hey, how you doing? Yo, everything good? Yeah, yo, you don't gotta scream. They get so loud up in your ear, and yeah. You see, if people knew that about our culture, it would make more sense when you guys hear like black people sometimes, you always hear like they get so loud on the phone. Oh, it's just something in our culture. I can't explain it. I'm still trying to figure it out my dang self. But, that's just something that's part of our culture. You guys laugh at it, but then, we got our little things as well that we look at and laugh at when you guys do. Like, you feel me? It's the same thing. So in reality, it's just that we need to really sit down and have these deep conversations from an understanding. Like, I felt like A lot of the people on the show weren't really hearing Farrakhan out from a different level. And see, that's what I'm saying. That's the first way to break like these stereotypes we're paying attention to on both ends, is getting to just listen, listen, think. Okay, what if black people are in a certain type of condition? We don't believe in separatism. We need to be together. Well, every time we're together, even though we would like to make it work, reality is it doesn't seem like it's really working. And then, two, there is separatism, man. You put us in the ghettos. We're in the ghettos. Some of us. And then there are people, and you've seen it over time because there's different reports and articles out about this, how certain families, they move into upper class neighborhood, they finally getting up, and you see the how they get pestered, tormented by their neighbors, and they're just trying to live, you know? So white people also, they're learning about our culture little by little because of the internet, realizing like, hey, not all black people are this way. They don't all talk this way. It was cool. And like I said, sometimes if they just have an understanding of culture, they have a little bit more respect. So then when they see our culture and how it's been perceived here in America for the hip hop side, you also notice there's certain black cultures as well that kind of feel these days that they don't want to necessarily associate with the hip hop culture because they feel it's negative. And like I said, every type of music, every type of culture has its good and bad. You feel me? Because there's a lot of different genres of music I could get you into, and I could show you the good and bad to it all, with the exception of soca. Soca rules at all. I don't care what nobody says. You are not beating soca. That is like us black people, Caribbean descended type people. That is our like electronic dance music, you feel me? That's ours for our black culture. White people have the dance EDM. We have soca. Yeah, soca all night. But anyway, see what I'm saying? It's like same things, just difference in cultures. So I thought this was going to be a shorter one, but clearly it's not. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to be short. But at the end of the day, I really want us to look at our education factors and history. Here's what we need to really look at. Black people, we need to learn about ourselves. I don't care if you start in your state, which sometimes I would recommend, and then you jump into Africa. I don't care if you learn about Africa and then jump into your state. I don't care if you start in Latin America. I don't care. Start somewhere. Just Google a African American, a black leader, something, and see what comes up. See how you feel. There's Marcus Garvey, Nelson Mandela. Look at these great warriors, Oh, yeah, I don't know. Some of them are a little scary. But, yeah. I mean, there's so much history for us. So much ways for us to see ourselves in a better light. And same thing. White people. I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody by saying white people, black people. I mean, if we're all people. But you guys, go home and you do a research yourself. Instead of learning about the slavery that you've learned about all these years from the school, why don't you actually go look up real slavery? Let's start with No, I'm not going to take you there. I wouldn't even consider that slavery. That's just on a whole nother level. That was a genocide going to Rwanda 1994 in Africa. You feel me? It's sad. But just look up somebody like Nelson Mandela and the whole thing of apartheid Africa. Look up the whole thing here in the States, what Malcolm X really went through, I mean, really just pick up somebody random. Type in just random African American leaders and go back to the times. You feel me? There's Juan Cabello, Juan Horse, who led the revolution here in Florida. But a lot of people don't know about that history because, like I said, we're given a certain history in school. White people and black people. See, it's depressing, like I said, for us black people to go to school and learn that we're slaves. And that every time we do have somebody that vocalizes, they get killed or assassinated. I mean, think about that psychologically, how a black kid feels learning that. Man, we were slaves. We were in chains. We were whipped by white people. How do you feel a kid is going to feel at the end of the day? Oh, you have potential to be like Martin Luther King, but most likely you're going to get shot. You're going to have potential to be like Malcolm X, but most likely you're going to get assassinated. You know what I mean? It's just like, yo, are these the only stories we have? And why are these the only type of stories you're telling us in school? It makes me really think the agenda that you have for us all. Anyway, I'm going to keep it short, end it there, ladies and gentlemen. Learn our history as well as we have to learn your history. And let's not even stop there. Not just Black history, white people, learn Mexican history. You'll have an understanding that these Mexicans were here a lot longer than you think. So sometimes I question, is English truly the original American language? Especially if, and do your research, Google it, look up what the term American is, and tell me what you read about the copper skinned people. Yeah, read the real definition American. And maybe you should start there with your history and see how other countries are learning your history as well. Because it's funny how you'll think things a certain way, you'll see things a certain way in media here, but once you leave your state, once you leave your country, you'll see things in a whole different light. And I say that because I remember at one point how I wasn't sure what to think of our President Obama at one point because of how media was perceiving him, the things I was reading. I'm like, man, this guy, it's messed up. And it took me having to leave my state, going outside and hearing different things that Obama was doing. And I'm like, I thought, you see, and that's the thing. We would condemn one another. People would get at me like, oh, how could you say that when simply I didn't know? Because like I said, media is different everywhere. The way you're learning things are different everywhere, which is why we have to do the research and stop listening to people. If the news is telling you, hey, this is Obama, he's this, that, you go research Obama's background yourself. You go check into what he has done yourself. We have the internet. How hard is it? What are you guys scared of? Is the truth really a scary thing? You'd be surprised. So like I said, let's learn about one another. Learn about the Mexicans. Learn about the Puerto Ricans and the Boricua culture. Learn about Cabello and the Florida Revolutionary or the Black Seminole Revolutionary War, the Second Seminole War, if you want to go there with that. Go ahead, learn all that stuff as well. Black people, white people, Latinos. Yeah, learn it. This is your time to do the research and learn the truth and not just go by what you were told in school. You know, in school, they always told us when we did our papers, if you're going to have this paper, you have to do the research and back it up. Well, y'all back it up for real. Like I said, unless you're scared. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. Buenas son to dinazion. Yo, moishamo tu. Yeah, all the way. Mishamo you. Mishamo them. I love you all. You feel me? Well, we got a lot more to talk about, a lot more topics, so much to talk about. It's hard some days to really choose. So these days I'm going more free spirited with it, and however I feel is something we need to talk on, we'll talk about it. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You will definitely see earlier within this week, check out the website. I will post a link to the first video with Farrakhan when he was on the Donahue show back in the 90s. And like I said, we got more to talk about. My love, my respect. Buenas son, mi nación.